members of Parliament, and distinguished guests. We want to thank you once again for making the time to be here with us. We know it's cold, we know it's not a pleasant place, and we know that we invited you to hear certain things which are not comfortable maybe to hear. Maybe some of you feel they are a very long time ago, but we as a team and we as an organization have a purpose, and our purpose is to remind today's Europe of the past. And I would like to first ask our chairman, Rabbi Margolin, to please come and share a few words.
Excellencies, President of the European Parliament, Secretary of the French National Assembly, President of the Parliament of the Czech Republic, Commissioner Varhely, ministers, members of Parliament and diplomats, Israeli ambassador to the European Union, our friend Mr. Alexander Mashkevich, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that every person in the world must visit Auschwitz. It is one of the most horrifying places in the world, but also one of the most important. 6 million Jews, women, children, babies, they were murdered, burned, tortured, and buried alive. Often, Jews were forced to kill their loved ones if they wanted to stay alive. Unimaginable situations. It happened not because they were different, because many Jews in Europe considered themselves Europeans before they considered themselves European Jews. In many cases, it couldn't be seen that they were Jews. It happened not because of political disputes. In most countries, their political influence was zero, and they were treated decently. It happened not because they harmed anyone, the opposite. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have made a tremendous contribution to society, in culture, the economy, medicine, science, and more. They were murdered for 2 reasons. One, hatred. Hatred that political leaders did not stop in time and allowed it to grow and incite. 2, politics. Cynical politicians rode on top on their way to unite the people against a so-called common enemy. And this is the reason for the importance of visiting Auschwitz. You see, people forget how bad human can get and allow themselves, therefore, to stretch the balloon a little more each time until it explodes. But in this case, it doesn't explode on its own, but also explode on everyone who is standing nearby. Last week, my 2 sons, Zusha and Yaakov, 13 and 11 years old, were on the bus back home from Schumann Station. It's just across the European Commission and European Council buildings. They entered the house shocked and angry. One woman, they said, looked at us with hatred as soon as we got on the bus. She hissed, "Dirty Jews," got up and moved to sit in the back of the bus. It happened last week in Brussels for my 2 little children. Many Jewish leaders, therefore, and Holocaust survivors say that the level of hatred against Jews today reminds them of the level of hatred before the World War II. So what do we do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Certainly, it is not enough to remember, and it is not enough to build museums. We should all be very clear that freedom of speeches, the freedom to vote, the freedom of movement, and any other so-called freedoms are all very important, indeed, but they come only after the freedom to simply live. And therefore, anything that could endanger human life must be rejected today by the decision makers. Each of you, ladies and gentlemen, has tremendous power in your hands. Please use it, and you will be remembered in the history as the leaders who lived in a generation where another Holocaust could happen again, and you prevented it.
And now we have the honor of inviting the President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Roberta Metsola, to say a few words for the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth, dear colleagues, dear friends. Thank you for extending this invitation to myself and my colleagues to come here. It is so hard to find words, but yet this is exactly why we must speak about the Holocaust, why we must speak about the atrocities committed here in Auschwitz-Birkenau and in so many other concentration camps across Europe. 6 million Jewish people killed, 6 million lives unlived, stories untold, loves unfulfilled. We light a candle in remembrance of such unfathomable crimes against humanity. We light a candle to remember those who perished and those who survived, burdened with unimaginable hardships. It is our sacred duty never to forget, never to remain silent, never again.
Thank you. And now we have the honor to have with us the President of the Parliament of Czech Republic, Ms. Can get it right? Ms. Markéta Pekarová Adamová, please.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as Roberta mentioned, it's very hard to find words, right words, at this place. A place where over 1 million lives perished in the most brutal conditions. They were murdered because of their ethnicity and religious belief. They died because of the forces of tyranny and evil prevailed, and not enough was done to stop them. We have gathered here today on the occasion of the anniversary of the Kristallnacht in November 1938. On that night, more than 80 years ago, Jewish homes, hospitals, schools, businesses, and synagogues were attacked and destroyed, and hundreds were killed. The cruelty was visible to everyone. It was widely covered in the press. All decision and opinion makers of the time knew what happened. But nothing changed. The European politicians kept appeasing Hitler and his allies. The American and other ports remained closed to Jewish refugees who desperately tried to save themselves. Anti-Semites of the world kept cheering the Nazi cruelty. 3 years later, the systematic mass murdering of the Jews started. It is hard to imagine the last thoughts of those that were dragged into gas chambers like this one. Maybe some of the victims in their last prayers hoped that their deaths would not be forgotten, that their hear from humanity's memory. The memory of the Holocaust has become part of our collective identity, and as the names of those killed in Auschwitz, Birkenau, and elsewhere. These memories will never be forgotten. But in today's world, hatred, bigotry, and intolerance are on the rise. We must step up our efforts to stop them. Antisemitism is a real and dangerous threat. In Europe and elsewhere, Jews are subject to violent attacks. Even the grandmother of Mrs. Knoll, I can't see her now, but I know she's with us here, sorry, was brutally murdered because of her Jewish origin. She was a Holocaust survivor. I'm so sorry what happened to your grandma. It is the responsibility of all European politicians that anti-Semitism of any form must be eradicated. Unfortunately, this is not our only problem. All around the world, nations and ethnic groups are being denied their rights to independent existence. Mass graves and concentration camps have again become part of our reality. Uyghurs, Rohingyas, Ukrainians, these and other nations are being subject to repressions or even mass killings. In a morbid turn of events, the Russian aggression started under the false pretext of denazification. This is in spite of the fact that President Zelensky is of Jewish origin. Let us not repeat the tragic mistakes of our ancestors. These evils must be confronted and stopped. It is our sacred duty towards those who died during the Holocaust. The main message of this horrifying place is Le'olam lo shuv, never again.
We are going to invite we would like to invite every single one of you, but because of time, obviously we couldn't. We're going to invite 7 representatives to come forward to light these candles. So we'd like to invite first His Excellency Commissioner Oliver Varhely, EU Commissioner for Neighborhood and Enlargement. You're going to stand together here in the light. Secretary of National Assembly of France, Ms. Caroline Javier. His Excellency Prime Minister of Montenegro. Okay. The President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Roberta Metsola. The President of the Parliament of Czech Republic. The granddaughter that we just heard just now, the granddaughter of the Holocaust survivor who was murdered in an anti-Semitic attack in Paris, Ms. Karen Knoll. And also we would like to invite finally Mr. Alexander Makiewicz, founder of Euro-Asian Jewish Congress, please. If I can please ask Chief Rabbi Jacobs to come forward. He's going to, we're going to hear the Kaddish prayer. Rabbi Jacobs here, in the microphone.
Combating antisemitism. That's the goal of a conference and a visit to this horrible location. Although I believe that anti-Semitism will not occur, we have to be alert. Fight it with education. Holland, during the Holocaust, only 5% collaborated with the Nazis. Only 5% was joined. Watched it, saw it happen, were scared or indifferent, kept silent and followed, like a herd, the easiest and wrong direction. But at this very moment, I don't want to speak about education, how we should approach the 90%, because I don't want to diminish this holy place educational project. Last year in Amsterdam, the National Memorial Monument with the names of all those who survived was unveiled. I noticed after the ceremony, people stepping forward and place their hand on the name of their father, their mother, their children, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts. I myself was one of them. But the most names were not touched by anybody because nobody was left to remember them. Kaddish is a prayer which a child says for his late parents. Let us say Kaddish and have in mind those who are completely disappeared because they were allowed to be murdered, because they were Jews, and the herd, the 90%, kept silent. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabo v'yom od yivro chirusei v'yavlich malchusei v'yasva pikori v'ikov meshichei v'chayei chin u'v'yevei chin u'machai l'chol Yisrael v'agol azman kori v'imro Amen. Yehei shemei rabo mevorach l'olam ulmei ulmayo yisborech v'yishtabach v'yispoel v'yishemom v'yisnasei v'yisador v'yisalei v'yisalol shmei l'kudesho b'richu l'eil minko b'choso v'shiroso tush b'choso v'nechemoso da'amiro b'yomo v'imro Amen. Yehei shlom rabo mishmayo v'chaim tov v'im olenu akol Yisrael v'imro Amen. Hey, say shalom b'mrimov, hu ya say shalom oneko Yisrael v'imru Amen.